for the whole of the federal government when I say that we are no longer in in election mode in the United States. We're in post-election mode. There is an interest of the Federal Republic of Germany to cooperate well with the United States of America. This goes for each and every president on the basis of shared values. And I believe that these are indeed shared values and should be shared values. So as to my position on President Assad, Assad as president has actively tried to kill his own people. He has bombed them with barrel bombs in a most terrible way. He has brought untold suffering over his people. If you look at Aleppo and other places, when you talk to the many Syrian refugees who have fled here to Germany, they will be able to tell you their own personal story. And the majority of them, the great majority of them, fled from Assad. And most of them not even fled the IS. So I don't see him as an ally.
Vielen Dank, Herr Präsident.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, you describe your hopes rather more in great historical terms. Let me break this down to months and years. The fact that Stephen Bannon was made as chief strategist, meeting Mr. Farage, and the fact that prominent Republican representatives did not decide to join this transition team. What makes you confident against the background of this that President Trump can be a reliable partner to the world and to Europe and Germany? Now, Madam Chancellor, if you hear those words of praise of the President with regard to you, what he said, can this not sort of demand too much from you and from Germany? Because too much is demanded, too much is expected from you, too great are the expectations, you can't meet them?
I'm always optimistic. There are times where I was in the Oval Office and people would come to me with all kinds of political problems and policy problems and international problems, and my team would be getting discouraged and depressed. And I would say to them, I have to be optimistic because the odds of somebody named Barack Obama being president of the United States were very low. And the fact that in my lifetime I have seen such enormous positive change in the United States and around the world tells me that that although history does not travel in a straight line, it moves in the direction of justice and freedom and a better life for people. But we have to fight for it. We have to work for it. What makes me cautiously optimistic about my successor and the shift from campaign mode to governance is there is something about the solemn responsibilities of that office, the extraordinary demands that are placed on the United States, not just by its own people, but by people around the world, that forces you to focus, that demands seriousness. And if you're not serious about the job, then you probably won't be there very long, because it will expose problems. Even when you're doing a good job, even when you are attentive, there's so many things that come across your desk that people are going to question you, and you're going to have opponents and you're going to have critics. And you figure that out pretty fast when you're sitting there. And I think the president-elect is going to see fairly quickly that the demands and responsibilities of a U.S. president are not ones that you can treat casually. And that in a big, complex, diverse country, the only way that you can be successful is by listening and reaching out and working with a wide variety of people. And so it is my hope that that is what will happen, and I'm going to do everything I can over the next 2 months to help assure that that happens. It is absolutely true that Chancellor Merkel is going to have significant responsibilities, has had extraordinary burdens that she's had to carry. If she chooses to continue, you're right, she will have big burdens. I wish I could be there to lighten her load somewhat, but she's tough. And I I know what it means to carry burdens, because the fact of the matter is that if there are problems around the world, the first question people ask is, why isn't Washington doing something about it? This is why it's so important not to discount or take for granted the importance of the transatlantic alliance. And this is probably the best place for me to end. In international fora, in G20s, in G7s, in the United Nations, the United States and Germany are not always perfectly aligned. America and Europe are not always perfectly aligned. But the voice that speaks out on behalf of some dissident who is jailed halfway around the world, the voice who is expressing concern about some child in an African village who doesn't have clean drinking water or is subject to some terrible disease, the voice that insists on rules and norms governing international affairs, the voice that helps to steer the world away from war wherever possible. That's our voice, more often than not. And we're not always successful. But if that voice is absent, or if that voice is divided, we will be living in a meaner, harsher, more troubled world. And we have to remember that. And whoever is the U.S. president, and whoever is the Chancellor of Germany, and whoever is the leader of other European nations and other democracies around the world, they need to recognize that. There are going to be forces that argue for cynicism, for looking the other way with somebody else's problems, that are not going to champion people who are vulnerable, because sometimes that's politically convenient. And if we don't have a strong transatlantic alliance that's standing up for those things, we will be giving to our children a worse world. We will go backwards instead of forwards. So whoever the U.S. president is, whoever the Chancellor of Germany is, we need to remember that, and our citizenry, who decide who our presidents and chancellors are, need to remember that.